He's thinning and spreading a silver ingot to create a three-dimensional pot. To do so, he anneals it and thins it out into a circle. Hammering it makes it harder. The more it is hammered, the harder it becomes. This wooden platform, which Okuyama calls an atedoko, or hammering base, is used to hold up the stake. It has indentations carved into the top. He uses these indentations to turn the flat surface into a rough, three-dimensional shape. Overlapping folds would create cracks. He hammers carefully, watching as he works, raising the crimped edges. The stake is used to make various shapes. The silver plate is white from annealing. He spreads it out using a hammer with rounded corners, taking care not to damage it. When the metal is struck, the metal crystals are crushed, making the metal harder. So after each round of hammering, the piece is softened by heating it again to just under its melting point. The edge of the thinned silver slowly stretches out and rises up. The thinner it gets, the faster it expands. Over and over, he reheats the metal to soften it, spreads it, and hammers it into shape. Using a hammer would make the already stretched edge too thin, so he uses a wooden mallet a third of the time. First, he makes a cylinder into which the pot will exactly fit. He draws the cross-section plan completely freehand. However, to create this particular curve, he needs to make a new iron stake or rework an existing stake. He uses 5 or 6 types of stakes to produce the curve he drew by hand. The bottom half of the pot is finished. To prevent further annealing of the bottom of the pot, he fills it with water and anneals the top half. One of the highlights of Tankin is aligning the edge. Once the rough overall shape has been created, the whole piece is hammered, making small adjustments while smoothing the metal. He works out the hammer marks. The thickness of the piece's walls is almost entirely uniform. Ideally, the base is slightly thicker. Okuyama revived the decorative technique of uchikomizogan, or hammer inlay, in a new form. He attached the designs to sheets of shakudo, a copper-gold alloy. and shibuichi, a copper-silver alloy, and cut them out. In the past, patterns were cut out using a chisel. Cutting out the entire pattern takes 10 days. He then begins brazing. Going over the melting point of the silver solder by even a little will cause the shibuichi to melt. The shibuichi cannot be rebrazed if a mistake is made, and the piece is delicately intertwined. He can't let his mind wander. He requires silence. If his concentration breaks, the shibuichi will melt. He hammers the brazed design into the pot. He worried whether he could hammer the pattern in without destroying it. He first embeds it with a mallet, then pounds it in with a hammer. He anneals it and hammers it to constantly refine the shape, fixing any protrusions or indentations. He uses a whetstone and charcoal to polish it to a mirror-like level. Different types of charcoal, magnolia and paulownia, are used, depending on the hardness. He roughens areas to create spring buds. Gold dust and mercury are heated to create the alloy amalgam. This is applied to the piece, and when heated, the mercury evaporates, leaving the gold. This is a traditional technique with a long history. The Tankin process, starting with an ingot and hammering the metal uncountable times, comes to an end. He passes the piece to a finisher. Sunaarashi, kanaarashi. The surface is roughened with emery powder and brass particles, creating a clouded exterior. Hara Kinchiro is one of a handful of finishers. The piece is washed with grated radish juice and plum vinegar to bring out the rusty color of shakudo and shibuichi, and it is boiled in a mixture of copper sulfate, known as tanpan, and verdigris. Like alchemy, this field is one in which gut instinct and traditional techniques developed through experience live on. Iodine is applied to the silver pot and exposed to light. It is said that finishing in the morning is best, but gentle exposure during the evening also produces a subdued, oxidized silver look. The two craftsmen reflect on the bounty of sunlight. This 1997 piece by Okuyama shows his desire not to merely rehash tried and true techniques, but to discover and create new aesthetics as well.